good to have you back on this channel. And if you are visiting this space for the first time, you are also highly welcome. Let's look at the inferior gemellus muscle. Using this image by the side, this is where we have the inferior gemellus muscle here, carried in dotted red. In this lecture, we'll be looking at how this muscle originates and also the point where it inserts upon. The inferior gemellus muscle is what is harrowed here in green, and it is a triangular shaped muscle that is located within the deep gluteal space. Remember in our lecture on the gluteal region, if you've not checked up that lecture, please kindly go and do so. In that lecture, we try to subdivide the muscles in the gluteal region into the superficial compartment and also the deep compartment. In this image by the side here, it is the deep compartment that is seen. This deep compartment is a collection of muscles, and this is overlined by the superficial compartment. So for the deep compartment, one of the muscles that you have around this space is the inferior gemellus muscle. It is also important for us to describe the position of this muscle with the other muscles that are located around the deep gluteal space. So this is where we have the inferior gemellus muscle, as we initially highlighted. So superiorly, we have the superior gemellus muscle that is harrowed here in dotted yellow. The superior gemellus muscle is located superiorly, while the inferior gemellus muscle is located inferiorly. These two muscles are then separated by the obliterator internus muscle. And this is what is also harrowed here in dotted yellow. So you see the obliterator internus muscle creating like an intercept between the superior and the inferior gemelli muscle. And this is what is captured here in this image. So if you try to compare the size of these two muscles, we say that the inferior gemellus muscle is larger than the superior gemellus muscle. So this is the relationship that it has with the obliterator internus muscle. So if you go more superiorly, you have the piriformis. This is the piriformis here at this upper edge that is also carried in dotted yellow. More inferiorly, deep down, we have the quadratus femoris. So all these muscles will come together to form the deep compartment of the gluteal region. And it is important that we are able to highlight the relationship that it has with the other counterpart within the deep gluteal space. So let's drive further to highlight the specific region where it originates and also where it inserts upon. This is where we have the inferior gemellus muscle here, arrowed in green. And this muscle is seen to originate from the ischial tuberosity. This is where we have the ischial tuberosity here, arrowed in dotted black. This is where we have the ischium. Remember that the ischium forms one of the structural components of the hip bone. We know that the hip bone is made up of the ilium, the ischium, and also the pubis. So at this inferior head, posteriorly, we have the ischium. So the ischium is seen to have a tuberosity, and this is the tuberosity of the ischium. And at this upper edge here, you have the origination site of the inferior gemellus muscle. So you see these fibers originating from the ischial tuberosity and are seen to be directed laterally. And finally, they are inserted on the medial aspect of the greater truncator of the femur. This is where we have the femur. This is the greater truncator, and this is the lesser truncator. So this is where it finally inserts upon. It is also important for us to have that the inferior gemellus muscle forms the triceps coccyx. This triceps coccyx is a collection of muscles, specifically is a collection of three muscles coming together. And these muscles are finally seen to have a common tendon at the point where they finally insert. So this triceps coccyx is structurally made up of the inferior gemellus muscle that is harrowed here in green, the superior gemellus muscle that is harrowed here in yellow, and also the obliterator internus muscle. So these three muscles around this region will come together to form the triceps coccyx. And at this lateral head, you see that they have a common tendon where they finally insert on the medial aspect of the greater truncator of the femur. We also tried to describe this scenario in our previous lecture on the superior gemellus muscle. So in case we are asked during examination, we should be able to state the different muscles that make up the triceps coccyx. And this is what we've tried to highlight using this slide. So this is where we have the inferior gemellus muscle here, harrowed in green. So going through the actions of this muscle is seen to exhibit lateral rotation and also abduction of the thigh when the hip is flexed. It is also seen to help support the head of the femur within the acetabulum. If you look at the path that it runs from where it originates from to finally where it inserts upon, you see that it is seen to be running over the hip joint. So deep to this muscle here, we'll be having the hip joint, and the hip joint we know is formed by the head of the femur fixed into the acetabulum. And this is where this muscle will be helping to reinforce this joint, thereby helping to create support and also stabilizing this joint. The blood supply of this muscle is by the inferior gluteal artery. The inferior gluteal artery is one of the branches from the anterior trunk of the internal iliac artery. We've tried to describe this branch in our previous lecture on the internal iliac artery. It's also seen to have a contributory blood supply from the internal pudendal artery. The internal pudendal artery is also one of the branches from the anterior trunk of the internal iliac artery. This muscle is seen to be innervated by the nerve to the quadratus femoris. The nerve to the quadratus femoris is one of the branches from the sacral plexus, and it is seen to originate from the ventral divisions of the ventral rami from L4, L5, and also S1 spinal nerves. So this is how the nerve to the quadratus femoris emerges from the sacral plexus. And if you look at the position of the inferior gemellus muscle with the quadratus femoris, remember we described in our previous slide that the quadratus femoris is this muscle that is most inferiorly placed within the deep gluteal region. So it is seen to be positioned close to this muscle, and this is why it is seen to share the innervation also of this muscle. So the innervation that supplies the quadratus femoris, which is the nerve to the quadratus femoris, is also seen to provide innervation to the inferior gemellus muscle. If we go back to our lecture on the superior gemellus muscle, remember in that lecture we said that the superior gemellus muscle is innervated by the nerve to the obliterator internal, and we try to justify this innervation due to the position that it has with the obliterator internal. If you look at the obliterator internal, says what is seen to be highlighted here in red, you see that it is closely positioned to the superior gemellus muscle. So they tend to share the same innervation with this muscle. This presentation is also exhibited by the inferior gemellus muscle. So the inferior gemellus muscle is also seen to be closely positioned to the quadratus femoris. And this is why they are seen to also share the same innervation. So thanks for watching this video. Let's continue to stay glued to this channel.